Good evening, everybody. It's 9:30 on the East Coast, 6:30 on the West Coast. On a Monday, it must mean it's time for your weekly Calamity Jane live stream. James, how are you doing on this first evening in Georgia that has been below 80 degrees in almost a month? And we are
Wow.
almost done with October.
Well, here in LA, it's one of many nights where it is below or just right
Yeah,
degrees.
yeah. No, it
So,
it feels good. Like this is the weird time of year in Atlanta where it's still uncomfortably hot during the day, but then it gets down into the
Mhm.
50s at night, and you're like, I don't know what you're doing, whether just pick a lane,
Oh,
you know?
yeah,
Um, but no, it actually today didn't really get above about 70 degrees, and it actually felt good for the first time in months at this point.
that's good. That's
Yeah,
good.
yeah. So we're just gonna jump right into this. So I
Mhm.
need you to tell me what we're working on because I want to
Oh, you have stuff to talk
I have
about,
to
right?
I have to judge you about something real quick. So
We have stuff. Okay,
yeah.
cool. All right, I'll go to share screen. I'm actually going to change it up a little bit this week. Normally, I'll work on one shot.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm being ambitious tonight, and probably it is a good night to do that because it sounds like we could be going longer. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be working on shots up here as maybe I've done in other streams where I actually label our scenes. So I'm on scene 55 up here under the
Okay.
label name. I'm going to be working on scene 55, 56, which is the warhog pose here.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at the library of warhogs here, but that particular pose, I'm going to do a new pose for the library tonight,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll draw this particular angle of the warhog. And
Yeah,
then we
front
got,
right three quarters. That's weird that you don't even have that pose
yeah,
yet. Yeah.
I don't think, yeah, I mean, I kind
You
of do
kind
a
of
little bit.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, this one almost works too, but this is just not the right angle that I was wanting for right here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm being persnickety about this, but I just like this the way the shot was set up. I'm being biased towards me with my drawing, but I like the way this is set up as a shot, and I like
Mm-hmm.
that pose of him there. And then we're going to 57, and this is where he'll drop. You don't see here, but in the underdrawing here, you'll see him drop the mug
Mm-hmm.
in shock as a warhog shows up. Um, and we'll do 57B where the warhog looks towards the
Mm.
sound of the crashing of the
All
glass.
right, ambitious,
So
ambitious evening.
yeah, so what the goal is to kind of show recycling of some assets with
Mm-hmm.
Mitchell and kind of using him to kind of carry us through some of these shots. And with the Warhawk, we'll see where I can if I can recycle anything at all, but probably not. But yeah, we'll see where we end up tonight. But yeah,
All
I'll
right.
start out with 50. So 55 is pretty much the same, although I might have him drop his arm in this shot.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get here. Let me go back to this shot here. I'll turn off the drawings, the animation stuff, just to show you. So here he is. He's holding the mug. See his arms down. I like that
Mm-hmm.
comedically better. And then
Mm-hmm.
that way it just
Mm-hmm.
draws your eye just to the one thing here. But in
Mm-hmm.
order to get there, he needs to have his hand down. Like we went from him with his hand holding up stop, and I might just animate to go down by the end of the shot.
Mm-hmm.
And so by the time we get here, we already know that it's down. I don't know yet. It could be just maybe it's okay because we have a shot that cuts it,
Mm-hmm.
and then his hand's already down.
Okay.
What's your opinion? Let
I
me
think it's
let
funnier
me
with the hand down. I think it. Well,
You, okay, so here's a question though. Does the hand need to go down? Do we need to see animation go down, or are we okay with the
yeah.
cut that
I'm.
helps say that it already went down between this cut? Do you see what I'm kind of saying?
I'm
So we
actually.
go
I'm
from
thinking from a
here.
continuity standpoint. His hand needs to go down
Okay,
as he drops it.
okay,
I'm just
all
imagining
right.
like, whoa, little lady, and then cuts, and then he's like in shock, so he's freezed there,
Uh-huh.
and so he's losing, like he kind of loses his control simultaneously. So his right hand drops as his left hand drops the mug, and so the mug and his right arm drop at the same time. Like that feels like that feels right to me.
Okay. So for me, so I have like I
Yeah,
said, this is kind of it's a mixed bag for me. I like the fact that the mug is the only star of the show in that
sure,
shot,
sure.
and then it drops, and then you don't have to look at other hand. It's not really as
Well,
meaningful.
what if okay, so what if we split the difference then? And he's frozen, and somehow he manages. He keeps his hand up, and then just the mug drops. Like he's just
We could do that. We could do
right.
that too.
Like he's
Yeah.
still frozen, and then the mug is still the
Yeah.
center of the attention,
Because you're
right?
used to seeing the same pose. Yeah, that could
Exactly.
work too. Yeah.
I just like the idea that he's kind of so completely frozen in shock, right? That he's
Hmm.
gotten very rigid. So,
Yeah.
um,
So Well, here's the good news: is I mean, dropping his hand is not that hard to do,
Hmm.
and actually keeping the pose the same is not that hard to do either. Again, I'm being ambitious tonight. I'm going to try to animate the hand dropping here,
Okay.
and then I'll drop the mug here. But then I'll actually hide it, and we'll do it the other way too, where we actually keep this pose the same and then drop the mug.
Okay.
I don't know how far we'll get tonight, but let's put a bookmark on that because I'm right down the middle. I like what you're saying too, like the fact that you're holding the pose
Hmm.
and then it drops the mug too. I mean, I'm right down the middle. That's why we're talking about that. But
All right.
anyways,
Yeah.
that's it's a minor hitch, but regardless, I'll be working on that type of stuff tonight. Um, but yeah, let's talk about non-Calamity Jane stuff. You had something else in mind you were going to bring
Yeah,
up tonight, I guess,
I
huh?
needed to judge you for a little bit.
Oh, great! I'm getting judged.
Yeah,
Okay.
you haven't seen The Wizard? Really?
Oh,
Really?
yeah.
Th
So this
this
all
is
started because yeah, it's bad. And that's Fred Savage, right? He was
yeah, it's Fred
one of his
Savage.
earlier. Yeah, I just didn't. I don't know what it was. I just didn't get around to seeing it. And I feel bad about that. I was a Nintendo nerd. I'm supposed to have seen that as
It
part of
is
my daily
required
diet
by
of Nintendo. I
Nintendo nerd
know.
law. Yeah.
So so by default, I should probably
Turn
give up my
yourself
Nintendo
into the
membership.
authorities. I know,
Yeah,
exactly. And go to Nintendo
never.
jail or yeah.
Yeah, I never saw it, and yeah, I do regret. I do feel. I mean, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed to admit, but yeah, I've
Good,
never seen
good.
it,
I'm
and
glad that shame should be what you're feeling now.
yeah, and that shame will lead me to actually
Well,
watch it eventually.
yeah,
But
so I mean, how did you, I mean, at our age, how did you survive not seeing The Wizard? I mean, even if I didn't want to watch The Wizard when I was a kid, I wouldn't have had a choice. Like, everybody was watching that movie. Every sleepover that I went to, that movie was on. How did you
huh.
manage to escape?
Well, I am. I am the elder statesman out of
That
us
is
too.
true. That
So
is
I
true.
I think for me, I might have been. What year did that
Just,
come out? Yeah,
uh,
I was in teenage mode, so I was already trying to be cool about other stuff, which didn't work either. But I think that's my excuse. Is I might
89.
have
It
been.
was 89.
Oh, yeah. So I was probably. Yeah, I was probably, let's see, 13, 14, something like that.
Yeah, so
So
you have no excuse. You were still
uh
right down the barrel on that one.
yeah.
I mean, anybody from about
Yeah.
the age of 8 to 15 was required by child law to watch
Yeah,
that
I know.
movie.
I felt like I was right on the cutoff, so I could get
Hmm.
away with not seeing it.
I am here
My
to tell
friends,
you that you were in fact wrong.
yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, that's my bad. I need to watch it eventually. Um, yes, and that's what featured. We talked about this because I put on my what I call my power glove, which is my
Hmm.
just my drawing
This is
glove.
how it
So I
came
just
up.
kind of made
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
Yeah, this is how
exactly.
it came up. But then you mentioned how the power glove was like featured in that movie. I wouldn't know because I never saw it, and now I'm being scolded.
It
Um,
feels so bad.
and
Yeah.
yeah, eventually I do want to see it. I will look for it and watch it in bits and pieces and see how wonderfully it's aged. I'm
Oh,
sure
it
it's
hasn't. No, it's terrible. I mean, it's an awful
really.
movie. Oh, it's a terrible movie. But that's not really the point, right? It is, as a kid, 89, so the NES came out in the United States in 85. So the NES
Hmm.
was well established at this point. It had taken over sort of the popular consumer electronics realm, revitalized the games industry after the crash of Atari. Um, and I didn't know a person in my life who didn't have an NES, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't about going to a friend's place because they're the ones who had an NES. It was what games did your friends have, right? It was assumed. I mean, I would go to sleepovers and all I would do is bring my games because I
Hmm.
assumed my friend had an NES, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so in '89, because I was 8 in '89 when that came out, um, uh, I can't even tell you the number of sleepovers that I went to where we would play Mega Man 2 or Super Mario Brothers,
Hmm. Hmm.
and then watch Wizard for the millionth time. I mean I haven't seen it at this point in a few years, um, but I could probably still quote it, right? You know, California. I mean, there's so many jokes, geek
Yeah.
jokes
Yeah.
that you will understand. And these aren't like jokes that were made on The Simpsons. These are just like video game nerd in jokes. Um, but you'll watch the movie and you go, oh, so that's where that came from, right? I mean, it's an absolute meme generator.
Now, if I recall, that movie was sort of it was sort of like their indirect Nintendo Direct at the time to talk about Super Mario Brothers 3,
It
right?
was the first American reveal of Super Mario Brothers 3. I can't recall
Yeah,
if
and
it
that
had.
was the big draw
Yeah.
to want to go see it because
Oh
you wanted to
yeah.
see, oh, what are they gonna do for Super Mario Brothers 3?
Hmm.
And yeah, so I never and then by the time, by the time I wanted to go see it, Super Mario Brothers 3 was already out, so the cat's out of the bag. It's like,
Right.
oh,
Right.
I just play the game now, at this point.
Yeah.
So,
I think it was already out in Japan, or at the very least was imminently going to be out,
mhm,
or its release was imminent. Um, but in the United States, it was still very much sort of not a present, imminent kind of thing. And
mhm.
so yeah, when they get to the tournament and Super Mario Brothers 3 comes up on that screen, oh man, I didn't see The Wizard in theaters. My parents had no
Okay.
interest in watching that movie.
Mhm.
Um, but on VHS, like the first time I saw it and I saw Super Mario Brothers 3 on the screen, it was mind blowing.
Okay. Yeah, I was just gonna ask you, like, what must have that felt like to actually see Super Mario Brothers 3
I
in
don't
all
know,
of its
man.
glory and
It's such a different world, right?
yeah,
Because these days with the advent of the internet, everything is kind of being spoiled
yeah,
beforehand. You've got
yeah.
leakers, and so
Mhm.
heading up into any sort of major announcement, you've already gotten some kind of you've caught wind um of the what's going to be announced in a big announcement, right? And now they make a
Mhm.
big show of it, and so Nintendo says, "Oh, we're going to hold a new Nintendo Direct in a couple of days," and that kind of thing. When that movie came out, and then all of a sudden, Super Mario Brothers 3 was on the screen, I was actually almost confused. Um, I was 8, so I didn't really fully understand the notion of sequels or things of that nature.
Mhm.
And seeing uh, and again, this is all through the hazy memory of a 40-year-old man or 40-year-plus-year-old man
Yeah.
remembering when he was 8 years old. But my memory was almost of confusion, like, wait, that's not Super Mario Brothers 1 or 2, and then sort of slow realization that, oh my God, this is a new
It's a
game.
sequel.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then you get so caught up in the action um, that it's just I don't know. It was very overwhelming, I guess, is the only thing I can say about that.
Okay.
Um, and I really loved the world, or the concept of the world that this movie lived in, where kids. I mean, I was a kid, so of course I love this. Kids were in charge, and
Mhm.
everybody in this world played video games, right? The adults didn't because adults are dumb. Um, but all the kids knew, and all the kids had this language that they could speak, and being 8 years old, that really spoke to me.
Mhm.
Um, and then there's sort of the road movie aspect of it, and the camaraderie, and the cute redhead, who I was over the moon for.
Mhm.
Um,
Get a huge crush on
oh yeah,
her.
huge crush on the cute girl.
Mhm.
And so yeah, so I I, I watched that movie so many times that you couldn't even imagine. But yeah, so that's the Wizard. I do recommend it. Getting a bottle of wine, or finding a nice bourbon, or getting your favorite,
And watching it, huh?
amber ale. Yeah, getting a little drunk and then just watching it and just going in knowing it's a terrible movie, but
Uh-huh.
that's not what the viewing experience is. That's not what it is. Remember
Okay.
what you missed when you were 13. Watch it through the eyes of a 13-year-old.
Okay. I'll see what I can do.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's on my list. It's one of those things where I'll look at it and go, do I have time to watch this tonight? No, I'd rather watch and then,
That's why I'm
you know.
saying you put it on your calendar, right? You clear your
Yeah, I should
calendar.
probably do that.
This
Yeah.
is this is the Wizard night. This is the movie I'm going to watch tonight. I've committed myself to this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a good strategy. I might give that a go. Yeah. Yeah, noted for sure.
All
A
right.
scolding successful, noted.
Good. Excellent. Good. I'm glad shame worked to bring you into the fold.
Yeah.
Um, so that was just sort of that kind of came up immediately before, but I think what I really wanted to talk about, you I think last week were like, you need to go watch Slow Horses. You need to go watch Slow Horses. Either was on the
Hmm.
stream or, in one of our conversations. And I did. I've watched all of season one at this point, and it was
Hmm.
phenomenal. It's so good. I mean, everything that you've said about the show 100% delivers. Gary Oldman is an absolute master.
Yeah.
Um, the whole cast is extremely compelling. The excuse me, the conspiracy and the mystery of first season was awesome.
Hmm.
It was really cool. And we were talking about this a little right before the stream started. Generally speaking, there are always exceptions, but no one does conspiracy better than the Brits. No one does spies better than the Brits. They're just, it's so classy, and there's double and triple
Classy.
crosses, and everybody always knows what everybody else is thinking, and it's always
Yeah.
a battle of wits, right? I mean, there was
Yeah.
almost no action in Slow Horses, like no real
No.
action sequences. There was a couple of
Yeah.
chases here and there,
Hmm.
but for the most part, it was all about the intrigue and the tension between characters, right?
Hmm. Yep.
And just excellent. Really, really enjoyed season one. In fact, I've already a couple episodes into the second season right now.
Yeah, it's yeah, we're on so Meet and I were watching it. We're on season 3 right now. And
Okay.
season 2, just as good as season 1
Yeah.
in my humble opinion. I'm glad you and I agree on this one. I guess we won't have a debate about anything on this one because yeah, we're pretty much gonna be mirroring each other because yeah, I just can't get over how we have actors where they just absorb the character and the role and you'd really that's who they are. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Gary Oldman's one of them. Like he's just, for the longest time, to me, he was Commissioner Gordon because of the Dark Knight series and all that stuff. But
Sure.
no, not anymore. Now he's known as Lamb to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
He's because he's that good of an actor that
Yeah.
the recency bias and just how he just takes the role. He's phenomenal. And
Which
then
is, yeah,
the set design, the
oh yeah.
details, like even in his, we were texting about this before, but I don't know if you even noticed, but like even like his hair, like there in season 2, you'll see a little bit here and there, but like just small little details, but his hair's like really stringy and there's bald spots here and there. Like they
Mm-hmm.
really
Mm-hmm.
go all out to show you how disheveled this once possibly great spy was,
Mm-hmm.
and now where he's at now. It's just so the clothing, everything about every single character gets that same meticulous treatment in my from what I can see. Um, yeah, it's such a well done show.
Yeah, I agree. No, yeah, the makeup, the
Hmm.
costuming, the production design, set design, like all of it is just, it's so good. Um and it was, yeah, it was remarkable how tense I was watching first season. And I don't, there's like maybe a gun is fired 3 times over the course of the whole
Yeah,
season.
yeah, yeah.
Um and it's just, but you just like, oh my god, are they going to be able to pull this off? Are they going to be able to pull this off? And
Hmm.
that was great. Yeah, really, really dug it.
Yeah, and and again, I'll avoid any spoilers, but season 2 just as good, and season 3 we're on season 3 now, and
Mm-hmm.
so far so good. I mean, it's like one of those shows where you don't want it to end.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of, similar to like what I was telling you about before, about video games too. Certain games, you just kind of play them, you don't want them to end. So I just finished Persona 5 Royal, and I was sad that it's ending because
Mm-hmm.
I won't see those characters ever again. You know how they are. Like the Persona games, you never see those characters again.
No.
Like they start new
Yeah.
stories. So you get attached to these characters. But yeah, Slow Horses, the characters are all. I think what makes it so fun to watch is how they really uh they really focus on flawed humans.
Mm-hmm.
Um and they keep hitting that home even in season 2 and into 3 that I've seen. And just something about that makes it uh somewhat a pretty relatable show to a
Mm-hmm.
point where you know how I am when it comes to certain bits in writing where something will break the immersion for me, and then I just hate it. For example, Andor.
Mm-hmm. Famously.
But this show, because I care about the character so much, I forgive all of it. Like I find little spots here and there, but I'll wait for you to watch a little bit more. Then you and I can talk about more of that type of stuff.
Okay.
But
All
it's
right.
really small. It's really like I guess I'm so forgiving for these writers because the characters are so well written. I'll overlook anything at this point. It never breaks out of the mold of how good the show is and their
Yeah.
relations with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks for the recommendation. Thoroughly enjoying it.
Yeah. I was gonna say with the British spy theme, I was gonna say that I tend to agree, except for there's one or two misses. Like for example, Matthew Vaughn directed Argyle, and I wasn't really feeling Argyle as much. And the Kingsmen, they're okay, but they're not as good as a good old fashioned, like even a terrible James Bond movie. I guess maybe it's just because I just grew up with them, so I'm
Yeah.
forgiving of them too. Um, but yeah, some of the more modern spy movies I'm not feeling as much. I don't know how you feel about the more modern stuff, but
I think that
um,
they're bringing too much comedy into modern spy stuff.
mm,
You know, and I say this as someone who hates anything that doesn't have a lot of comedy. Um, but I mean, Slow Horses. I mean, Gary Oldman's character is hysterical, right?
yep,
And
he is, and it feels natural
yeah, right.
because of the way his character is. It's
Right.
not you're not trying to ham it up for anything. The only character that can get away with this is James Bond
Yeah.
because again we're conditioned to expect that from James Bond once in a while during a heat of battle when he's about to die
Right.
or something. But
Even though the Daniel Craig ones were pretty humorless.
yeah, they were
But
again back to
no.
the more modern ones. Again, I would consider Daniel Craig's Bonds the more modern spy ones, and I don't enjoy them as much.
Yeah. No, I agree. I did like the last couple. Um, but everybody like raves about Skyfall, and my take on that it was Home Alone with guns. I mean, like the I
Yeah, that's a popular take. I mean, I've seen that a lot of people say the same thing. It's just Home Alone with guns. Yeah.
yeah, and so yeah, everybody raves about that one. I didn't love it, and I thought Casino Royale was okay. I thought A Quantum of Solace was not good at all. But then
Yeah.
like Spectre and what was it, Die Another Day? Um, I thought those were great. I thought those were really, really entertaining. Um,
Is is Die Another Day? I always associate Die Another Day with Brosnan because of the Madonna song, the theme song. Is
yeah,
it Die Another Day or is it another name for that one?
uh, yeah. I'm probably getting it wrong. All of the James Bond movie titles start running into each other
Yeah,
after
they
a point in
do.
time. Hold on.
Although Moonraker always sticks out
Yeah.
for
Oh
me.
yeah. 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 That's a classic. And Octopussy too.
Octopussy too. Yeah, yeah. But Live and Let Die for sure bleeds
Yeah.
into
No
other
Time to
ones.
Die. No Time to
Oh,
Die.
that's yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah. Die Another Day was in fact the Pierce Brosnan one.
Yeah.
And it was
Um,
awful. I think Die Another Day was the one with Haley Berry, right?
yeah, it
Yeah.
was.
I
Yeah.
Goldeneye is one of the greatest Bonds ever.
Yeah, I agree,
Fight me if you
100%
don't,
there.
if you
Yeah, we can't
disagree,
fight
but
tonight. We're agreeing on everything so far.
all
So
right.
there's gonna
Well,
be
okay.
not
Well,
much drama, but
hot take. I liked The World Is Not Enough. It wasn't as good as Die Another Day. I mean, of Goldeneye, it was way better than Die Another Day. But I like The World Is Not Enough.
what happens in World Is Not Enough? Can
That's
you
the one
refresh
where
my memory?
Jonathan Pryce plays a billionaire media mogul who tries to take over the world from a stealth boat, and it has Christina Ricci in it playing. She's a astrophysicist, and like her last name is Christmas or something like that.
Yeah, it was I think, and again here I know the names are bleeding with each other, but I think it's called Tomorrow Never Dies for that one.
Oh yeah, Tomorrow Never Dies. World Is Not Enough is the third one. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Or is World Not Enough the one that was the video game that they called World Is Not Enough and it had Willem Dafoe was the bad guy.
Hold on. Let me just do this.
Look at all this memory bank stuff that I'm pulling up.
Yeah, I know. Oops.
It's crazy.
Pierce Brosnan, James movies. Okay. Yeah, my brain is falling apart right now. So Goldeneye, The World Is Not Enough, was one of the Pierce Brosnan movies.
Okay.
And I'm right. The World Is Not Enough is the one with Jonathan Pryce and Denise Richards.
Okay. So Tomorrow Never Dies, but what is Tomorrow Never Dies then?
Tomorrow Never Dies was the third one with Michelle Yeoh.
Michelle Yeoh. Okay.
Yeah.
But see, I thought that's one that had the stealth boat and the guy that was the media mogul that was like Steve Jobs.
I don't think so. Oh yeah, that is
Wannabe.
okay. We were both right.
Yeah, we kind
So
of mixed the, yeah, we're mixing our because
okay, we are
again,
missing
the
we're mixing
titles,
storylines.
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
Tomorrow Never Dies, that is the good one. That is the one with Jonathan Pryce. But that's the one with Michelle Yeoh. Then
uh-huh.
The World Is Not Enough is the one with Denise Richards, and that's
Denise
when they
Richards.
started
Okay.
like kind of going down the tubes a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
All
Now,
right.
you know what's funny is we're doing a full circle here, but Jonathan Price, he's
In
also a
Slow
character
Horses,
in
yeah.
Slow Horses, and he's terrific in that too.
Yeah, he really
Uh,
is.
He,
Yeah.
he commands, it's funny, like with with the two with him in there and Oldman in there, they both command the screen. You want to see what you're always kind of hanging to see what they're gonna
Mm-hmm.
say. But I love the fact that they have Jonathan Price in there as the grandfather character who knows a whole bunch of stuff and won't let on.
What
And
will it on? Yeah, I know exactly. It's so funny because you know he knows everything and he's just sort
yeah,
of having fun being on the outside of it for a change.
yeah, and
Yeah.
and yeah, and the same sense you get with Lamb, Ullman's character. You think you pretty much know all of his skeletons in his closet, but you don't know whether he's just drunk and disheveled and he's kind of forgot stuff and it'll just come up when he needs to react to it or
Mm-hmm.
what. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but
Yeah, totally
anyways, but
agree.
back to this whole but the modern day spy stuff. I mean, to me, this is the best installment of a spy type of show that's been around for I can't remember the last time I've enjoyed a good spy thriller type of show,
Mm-hmm.
since the Brosnan days with Goldeneye, for
Yeah.
example, which is
Yeah.
that was in the 90s. I mean, yeah. Um, so I'm not sure if you feel like you have anything else as far as a spy thriller that's British that's modernized besides this show.
I mean,
But
it's
I'm
not
kind
a
of
spy thriller, and it used to be really popular, and it's sort of fallen out of favor for a variety of reasons. But and I don't remember what your thoughts on it are, but the modern takes on the Sherlock Holmes that the
oh, those are
BBC
great.
did with
Yeah.
Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin
Hmm.
Freeman, I thought
Yep.
that those were excellent, and it's in the
Yep.
same vein of sort of very British mystery solving, where
Hmm.
there's a huge amount of tension and almost no violence, and you're like, how do you create so much tension when realistically, like, are the stakes really this high? No one is going to die, in some of these instances, in some of these
Yeah.
mysteries. I mean, that's not entirely true. There are victims, but none of the main characters are really um, uh, in danger. And those. Oh, I have to remember his name. I can never remember his name. Um, uh, the guy who played Moriarty, Andrew Scott. He
Hmm.
later showed up in Fleabag, and he was in 1917, and he's in a new show that apparently is really good that I haven't seen. But he plays. Oh, and he was in Spectre. I forgot about that. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, this is a real James Bond adjacent stream tonight.
It is.
But he uh, um, he was like the first time I saw him in Sherlock was just I was just like, oh, this guy is a guy to watch. Like he is just phenomenal.
Yeah, he's a really good actor too. Yeah, I
Yeah.
enjoy everything. But you know what's funny with him? I always recognize his face, but I don't remember what he's in, except for when you say Sherlock, you say the Moriarty, then yeah, I know exactly who he is. But I have to always get a recall to remember what else he's in,
Hmm.
as far as a role is concerned. I haven't watched Fleabag, so I mean, I tried watching one or two episodes, I just couldn't get into it.
Yeah.
That's just me. I just couldn't. I don't know what it was. Maybe I didn't give it enough of a chance.
I
But
haven't
I mean, a
seen it
lot of
either.
people
I've
seem
only
to
I've
love
only
it.
seen clips of it that and then
Okay.
and he's in it and he's great. Like
Hmm.
he's really funny. And again, like Sherlock had this it was serious, but it had so much humor in it, right? Um,
Hmm.
but it wasn't a comedy. And I think that is the I don't not going to belabor this conversation that we've had a million times on the stream, but that's the difference, right? I mean, even in the darkest times, there's always comedy. People always find a way to laugh because we have
Mm-hmm.
to.
Mm-hmm.
And so I find um, shows where there is just no humor insufferable. They're impossible to watch, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, um, and so I think the Brits are really good in that kind of mystery thriller space of injecting a little comedy. And I think, to your point, I think it's gone a little bit too far. I wouldn't even really consider Argyle a spy thriller. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
comedy, right?
Yeah, it does. It probably does fall more in a comedy than it does
Yeah.
a thriller. Yeah. So you've seen Argyle yourself, right? You watched that one
I've
or
only
no?
seen clips of it. I watched
Okay.
a little bit of it for work. I could never really. I
Mm-hmm.
watched enough of it so I could write an article about it, but I couldn't.
Okay.
I couldn't get through it. I thought it was
Mm-hmm.
awful. And
Okay.
I love Sam Rockwell, and I still just
Yeah.
could not
Yeah.
get into it.
Yeah. Same here. I've enjoyed Sam Rockwell's stuff a ton. Anything else he's in too, but
Hmm.
not my favorite with this one. Although I don't know why, because some of the lines were really good for him and everything. I just
I just don't think it
I
was
don't
a
know what it
very
was.
good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
So.
yeah. So yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I agree. Slow Horses is the first uh um like spy thriller that I've seen in a long time that I've really gotten invested in,
Mhm.
Um um but all that being said, I think the Brits still do it better than the Americans
Yes,
do.
I agree. I think us Americans, our films tend to have a lot more thuggery in it, much
Yeah.
more
Like I mean,
violence and fist
yeah.
fights and stuff, which is, I mean,
That's fine. There's nothing wrong
it's
with it.
almost, yeah,
Yeah.
it's just, that's part of our trope, I guess.
Right. Yeah, I mean like the Jason Bourne movies, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
They're decent mysteries. There's some fun conspiracy that you're figuring out, but
Yeah.
really the only thing you think of when you watch those is a fight choreography. I couldn't tell you what the actual mystery of those movies were about anymore. But I can tell you about the scene where Jason Bourne jumps through a window in a building in
Yeah.
Spain somewhere and beats the crap out of that guy in these really intense close-up action sequences.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And then meanwhile, I mean, I don't know if this even counts, but I don't think John Wick's considered a spy
no,
thriller at all. That's more of an
that's just
action.
an action movie. Yeah,
Yeah. It's a good old-fashioned action movie. Yeah. So, but it feels like it's been I mean, since Born, it's been a while since there's been a decent. I mean, there's the Mission Impossible movies, and I don't even know what to think about those. I myself, I know they make a lot of money. I
yeah.
think I get bored watching them myself. I don't know how you feel about them, but
They're uneven. I
mhm.
really love the first one, Brian De
Yeah.
Palma of all people.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and it was very, very true to the spirit of the original show.
Hmm.
Um, and I loved all the gadgets, and I loved all the planning and the team execution and the double crosses. I actually thought that that was a great spy movie.
Hmm.
Mission Impossible 2 was just awful. I mean, it
Yeah. That's
remains,
the John Woo one, right?
yeah, it
Yeah.
remains to this day one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life.
Ever seen?
Ever seen.
Wow. Yeah.
It was so bad. It is such a product of the era that it was made. I think like early 2000s, right?
Hmm.
Just everything was too cool for school. I mean, it was just the fact that the movie opens with Tom Cruise's character free climbing off this up the side of a
Hmm.
cliff, and
Hmm.
then a guy shoots a rocket that lands next to his feet, and then out emerge special sunglasses that he listens to the thing, and he throws them to the camera, and then it
Oh
explodes, and it
man.
was just like, oh my god, oh my god,
Wow, you remember a lot of that movie. I hated that movie. I think I just threw it in my,
oh
my recycle bin of my brain. I don't
yeah,
remember anything about it. I do remember the opening scene of him on the rock face, whatever, and that was
hmm
it. I don't remember anything
oh
else. I
my
just
god.
couldn't stand it.
It's never ending. The gunfight joust on
Hmm.
motorcycles,
Hmm.
um it just of course the doves, right? Because it's John Woo, and
Yeah,
he just cannot.
of course,
Um,
of course.
and
Yeah.
then Mission Impossible 3 was not great. It was better than Mission Impossible 2, and it salvaged the franchise. And
Uh-huh.
it came out at the height of JJ, well, not the height, but sort of the rise of JJ Abrams' celebrity.
Yeah.
And you if you can watch it in the context of when it came out, I can see why people thought it was so cool. But then watching it today, it's just not good. It is just. I mean, Philip Seymour Hoffman is amazing in it,
Hmm.
but it is just not a good movie. But then Ghost Protocol, Brad Bird's Mission Impossible, the one that's set in Dubai,
Hmm.
that one was excellent. That was it was a great mystery, great action, great cast. Just a really, 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 I mean, for my money, the best of that whole series was Ghost Protocol and the first one.
I have not seen Ghost Protocol yet, so I'd like to watch it one of these days.
I highly recommend it. It's really good.
Yeah, because I mean, being an animation nerd, I mean, I like Brad Bird anyway because of Iron Giant, everything else,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I always wanted to watch it, but I guess I wanted to be a completionist and try to watch them all in order at some point. So I always wait to watch that one,
Yeah.
and then I didn't. I just ignored it anyway, and I watched the next one anyway, the most recent one anyway. So
Oh,
I've already broken my own rule.
Dead Reckoning. Yeah.
Yeah, and now Dead Reckoning. It's just too long, and
Yeah, and then
it's
it's
almost
only like the
too.
first half of a single story. Yeah.
Yeah. Last I read about Dead Reckoning they've spent a lot of money on it. I think is it Paramount's property? I can't
Yeah, it's
remember.
Paramount. Mm-hmm.
So they put a lot of money into it. They didn't get their money back, and now they're trying to make the second one. But I think there's a little bit of trepidation with it. I'm
Hmm.
assuming at this point because it still
Well,
didn't make the
yeah,
money back.
it was
First
supposed to come
one,
out this year,
yeah,
and then it kind of yeah, and in theaters it was Dead Reckoning Part 1, and now they have since dropped the Part 1, and the new movie is going to be a completely different title. So I think that they're trying to not
distance themselves.
yeah, distance themselves from it because it was sort of middling. And I
Yep,
agree. I mean, it was fun. After Christopher McQuarrie took over, and he's the one who's largely been working on these because he wrote
yep,
Ghost Protocol, and then he's written and directed the rest of them, Rogue
yeah.
Nation and Fallout and Dead Reckoning. It hit a fun stride. I mean, they're fun movies.
Hmm.
Outside of Ghost Protocol, and in the original, I wouldn't call any of them like great movies, but they are fun, right? They're definitely
Hmm.
fun movies to watch, and the cast is great. I mean, Tom Cruise is Tom Cruise. He's the last of the great movie
Yep.
stars.
Hmm.
Simon Pegg is always phenomenal. Um, Ving Rhames is always there. And I've got a horrible crush on both Rebecca Ferguson and Haley Atwell. So and
Uh-huh.
they're both great in those movies as well. So the cast
Hmm.
is really phenomenal.
Yeah.
And Christopher McQuarrie knows how to write a fun yarn.
Hmm.
Um, or I'm mixing up my metaphors there, but spin a good yarn.
Hmm.
But yeah, none of them honestly can even come close to James Bond at his peak, right?
Yeah.
Just not even close, right? In sort of the action spy genre, James Bond has had well, I don't know. I would still rather watch Moonraker than Mission Impossible 2. So
Yep.
even
That's a gimme
yeah,
though,
yeah. So even Bond at his lowest is still better than Mission Impossible at its lowest. So,
Yeah, okay, that's a fair way to look at it. Okay, so here's a good question. Here's a question for you.
all right.
What would you consider as peak Bond? Like, what do you think is prime Bond?
I mean,
Who do you think
the
is
for me the Gold trilogy. Those are the ones I always go to. Goldfinger, The Man with the Golden Gun, and Goldeneye. Those are
so
hands down the
you're pretty
three
much
best.
saying you're saying the Connery era
Well,
of stuff.
Connery is Goldfinger, Roger Moore is The Man with the Golden Gun, and Pierce
Okay.
Brosnan is Goldeneye. And
Oh, you're talking about okay. All
those
right.
are the three best
Man. So you
Bond
actually
movies.
don't even look at the actors at all. You're just picking just strictly off of okay, I
Yeah,
gotcha.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, my favorite Bond Um, it's got to be Connery, I guess, just because he's the one who kind of defined who the character was, and everybody in some form or another is living in a shadow, whether they're trying to
Yeah.
live up to what he established or break away from what he established. One way or the other,
Hmm.
he set the foundation for the character.
Hmm.
And he's got just some amazing quotes in those movies. I mean,
Yeah.
Gold, uh, the original Doctor No, which was not a great movie. There's just one of my favorite lines ever. Is there's like a shootout in a like a ryokan or something like that, and the bad guy's shooting and James is shooting, and they both finally the fight ends, and they're sitting across from each other, guns pointed at each other, and the bad guy shoots his gun and clicks, nothing happens, and Bond goes just icily, "Yours is a Smith and Wesson. You've had your six." Because the Walter PPK had 7 rounds, he had one more round in the chamber, and he shoots him and he dies, and it's just like, oh, what a stone cold awesome line! It's just
Yeah.
amazing,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And then Goldfinger had just amazing quotes too. Like, "Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die." I mean, come on, that's like one of the most um,
Yeah.
iconic
Yeah.
Bond lines in the history of cinema. And The Man with the Golden Gun honestly, it's Roger Moore's best Bond. I would argue that The Spy Who Loved Me is pretty close, but can you tell I'm a James Bond fan, despite me
Yeah. I
getting
mean,
titles confused earlier?
yeah,
Um,
no, it's fine. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of them too. I'm with you on all those are great movies. Although for Roger Moore, and I see for me the only thing is I always associate the actor first and their era,
oh,
and then
interesting.
the movie. So for
Okay,
me, Roger Moore's best movie is Live and Let Die. I really
that's
love that
good.
movie.
Yeah, yeah. Live and Let Die
Such a
is a
good
good
movie.
one.
Great theme song.
Yeah,
I mean, because
classic.
Paul McCartney's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so
Mm-hmm.
good. Everything about it from beginning to end is just it was set in New Orleans, right? I mean, for the
Yeah,
most
yeah, yeah,
part.
yeah. Live and Let Die was in New
Yeah.
Orleans. That's where Baron
Oh,
Samedi
jeez.
was, and
Yeah.
Jane Seymour playing sort of the what was she, like, a witch doctor or something like that,
Yeah,
or
yeah, she was. And then the villain was the claw guy.
yeah,
Like
that's
he's a great
right.
iconic. He doesn't get enough. I don't think he gets enough flowers for being a great iconic James Bond villain. Like you always think
Yeah,
about what's his name? The guy with the
Jaws.
spin there's Jaws, of course, is number one probably. And then the guy with the hat that spins it, chops off statues'
Oh yeah,
heads.
Odd Job.
Odd job.
Yeah,
Odd job.
yeah,
I think those two always get top billing as a villain, but boy, um, the Live and Let Die's villain's terrific too. I thought he was great.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
The Living Daylights I think was weak, but
Mm-hmm.
um, Christopher Walken was a great villain in it though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
Well, was he in so was that
The Living Daylights was Richard Dalton.
yeah, Timothy Dalton.
Timothy
But
Dalton.
then
Yeah, he was in
I thought
oh
I thought
shoot.
Walken I thought Christopher Walken was Zoran in
Yes.
View to a Kill,
View
which
to
is
a
another
Kill.
great theme song.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. View to a
He had the
Kill.
big
Yeah.
giant blimp and everything. See, I see we're both Bond fans here, man.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, I
yeah.
love he was and I feel like that's the first time I ever saw Walken do any role. So I thought,
Mm,
oh, this guy's really, really freak.
yeah.
He's a terrific villain, bad guy. And
Yeah,
after
yeah.
that, I kept watching everything he was in. But yeah, Duran Duran did the View to the Kill song. That
Mm-hmm.
was great. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
so many.
I forgot that Moore. I think Moore did the most movies, didn't he?
Okay. Yeah, he
Uh,
probably did.
I mean, I think Connery. It was either Connery or Moore, but they both were carried the Bond mantle
The
for quite
bolt.
a long
Yeah,
time.
they
I mean,
did.
we
I
haven't
feel
even
like they
mentioned
did.
Octopussy and
Yeah,
Moonraker. I mean, we have, but like
yeah,
obviously those
yeah,
were so campy. They were honestly they're more for comedy value than anything else. But
yeah.
um, and say what you will, I didn't think George Lazenby was a great
No,
Bond, but there were some amazing set pieces in On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
I,
Um,
I, I don't even remember anything about that. I remember like a car crash scene, and he
mhm.
loses his bride or
Yeah,
something. That's the one where
that
he
was
gets
like
married,
right at
right?
the end of the movie too.
Yeah,
It was like,
yeah. That's all I remember.
what just happened? Um, Yeah, no, it has to this day one of my favorite car chases ever. They're like I believe this is the one where there's like a chase, a ski chase. There's more than one in the Bond universe, but this is like a downhill ski chase. They get to their cars at the bottom of the slope. They hop into their cars, and there's this amazing car chase as they slalom through these icy roads in the Alps or whatever mountains that they're in, and there's
Hmm.
these
Hmm.
snow drifts that are like 8, 9 feet high on either side, and they're just like bouncing back and forth through these snow drifts that they're, and it was all practical, right? Like this was
Hmm. Hmm.
all
Yeah.
of this was really done, and you're watching this going, oh, I mean, it is one of my favorite car chases ever,
Hmm.
and yeah, so but there's so many great movies. I don't remember which one was the one where Bond finally kills Blofeld at the beginning of the movie. He like Blofeld's like in a chair and Bond picks him up with one of the struts of a helicopter and dumps him down a smoked stack. Oh, I don't even remember which one that
Boy,
was.
I don't remember that one either. That one I have to go revisit again.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
another Roger Moore one.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, I think of the Bonds, my least favorite was Timothy Dalton.
Yeah, it's
Um,
kind of sad. He's a great actor.
he's a great
Like,
actor, yeah, and I didn't
but
hate him, but he just didn't really have the same presence that you were looking
no,
for
no.
a Bond
Uh,
actor.
yeah.
So,
Um,
and yeah,
yeah.
I don't
Well,
know that I really consider George Lazenby. I mean, he was in one official Bond
yeah,
movie, right? But then
yeah.
like they were just like they were audiences rejected him so hard
Is
that
that
they're
what
like,
happened? Is that why
I,
he?
I
Is that
think
why he
so.
was?
I don't know. I don't know why else they would dump him like that, unless he was a real jerk and they're like, we don't want to work with you again, which is
I
possible. I mean, I
thought
don't know.
I thought he got a role someplace else, and then it conflicted, and they just
Oh,
said goodbye to him.
that
I
that
don't
may
know, but
very
I'm
well be
not
the
sure.
case.
Yeah, we should
Yeah,
probably
I've
look at
never
it
done like a lot of
offline.
research on that.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, we could talk more James Bond maybe on next stream. I think I'm in a pretty good spot to wrap up for tonight.
Okay.
I do want to discuss one challenge that I kind of came across here.
Okay. All right.
So let's go back. I'll go back to scene 55. Um, all right, so here we are. This is the same. This is fine. I did animate his hands to go down just to kind of see it. So that would be the pose with his hand down.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Go to the next shot. This is where the warhog enters in. That'll be the pose of him walking in. Well, it's not exactly like the drawing, but I'm happier with that pose here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then we have this pose. Now, this is the original drawing. I didn't have the arm down here, but I could always go back to this one here if I want to. But when he drops the mug, that's the new pose if I'm following the drawing. But
Mm.
my drawing here, it's already fighting with it because
Mm-hmm.
I have the wrong arm pose. That's one
Mm-hmm.
issue already. The second issue is if his hand's out like here, his hand's still up here. There's two hands kind of going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I almost feel like it needs to look like that and then have this hand. But this drawing here needs to be redone altogether, which means I have to go back and revisit some of the drawings of
Yeah.
what I borrowed this from. Won't be that big of a deal, but it's just something else. But that requires a little bit more construction work, which
Yeah.
maybe I'll do for another, offline, not in the next week stream. I'll find something else to work on. But everything else, so the warog's here, and then he looks towards the crash, so that works. So I would say it's semi-successful for tonight, except for I wasn't anticipating having this issue
Mm-hmm.
where we're having two hands up, they're both fighting each other, and I don't want to, um, that's how I feel. Well, what are your thoughts as you're
I
looking at
agree with
this?
you. It needs to be one hand. I agree with you. The position of the arm, he moves it so much it loses
Yeah,
the effect
yep,
of him dropping it. I mean, I think his
yep,
arm really needs to be kind of frozen.
static,
Yeah.
right? Yep, yep. And then the only thing you see is the hand.
Yep. And so
Yep.
I think everything that you said, I agree with. And I'm sorry, it means that you have to go back and do a little bit more work, but I do think that your assessment is accurate.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. So yeah, but no, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, I can still use the cup and glass. I just have to change the arm position, which
Mm-hmm.
won't be that big of a deal at all. That'll take a little bit, but I have to go back and just redo it. We put it back in the other shots. But that's the beauty of working in Adobe Animate Flash is you can recycle stuff and
That's
keep
right.
going. So yeah, but overall, generally, I'd say 80% success.
All
So I have a
right.
little work to do.
80%. That's not too bad. That's not too bad.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll wrap it up there. Everybody, if you want to consider heading on over to calamityjane.rocks, that'll take you to our Patreon site. Please consider signing up and joining us on this adventure to make this cartoon a reality. You can also find us on Facebook and YouTube, which presumably you already have since you're watching the stream. And we're also on Instagram. Sometimes we'll do fun stuff over there, like post back behind the scenes shots and little quips and things of that nature. So stay tuned for that as well. But I think we'll be back next week at the usual time. I don't have any plans next Monday for a change.
The only plans are hanging out with you and maybe talking more James Bond.
All right, that sounds like a plan. All right, stay safe out there, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Good night.